You speak? Never mind, I see it.
I'm speaking.
I hear him, he's crazy.
Come here.
Oh my god, he's so
Come here.
needy.
Come here.
Yeah,
Oh.
he's so needy. He's just a little boy. You don't even feed him anymore. The machine feeds him, but he still's gotta scream about it. He looks
Yeah.
pathetic. Oh, the boy. It's like, alright, I'm done with this shit.
Why are you so mean to him?
He's done with it. He's over it.
I need to get this recipe up. Why are we still screaming? Huh? 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 Huh?
He's so pathetic. He's starving. You don't feed him. He's skinny. He's all bones. I'm gonna have to call the CPS.
What are you doing, dude?
Clorox. Alrighty. You remember what happened last time?
Give me the rundown.
They were contemplating who could have implanted the memories of the ghosts or whatever. And it's like it has to be someone who could lead you wherever, who you trusted. And then Shillian was coyly like, actually, there's another person. And then he was like, it's not Feng Shin, is it? It's not Wu Ching, is it? And he was all jealous. And
Yeah.
and then they saw Geze and Xuanji. And then they ran into Yinyu, who got captured. Yinyu and a bunch of the Rain Master's farmers got captured by Qirong, and then they tricked him into saying the password, and then they just replayed the password with the butterfly. And then what happened at the end?
Bro, this is the worst fucking...
Oh yeah, they turned Qirong into one of those little bobbleheads. And then
Right.
He picks up Geze, and then Wraith butterflies come over, and then Hua Cheng's just like, we need to hurry back to the Holy Temple. And Shilian is like, something happened. Good God, I have to turn you down. Alright. So that ends with... Uh-oh. Ends with A few wraith butterflies came flying from a different direction and landed on the back of Hua Cheng's hand. He cast a glance down, then said, "We need to hurry back to the Holy Temple." Shilian whirled around. Did something happen there? And now we're on Chapter 89. Resentful female ghost. Flames of jealousy burn the affection. Hua Cheng raised his hand slightly and brought the silver butterfly perched there close to Shilian's ear. Along with the sound of the silver butterfly's fluttering wings, he heard Pei Ming's voice floating over. "Silly thing, did you hear that strange noise?" Even though Shilian knew that Pei Ming felt nothing for Banyue, the way he spoke would make anyone wonder. It was probably because Pei Ming had been chasing skirts for such a long time. "I'm not silly," Banyue muttered grimly. "And I heard. That noise was really weird. I don't think it's General Hua coming back." "Of course it wasn't. That was the thumping sound Xuanji made when hopping along on her broken legs." The thumping didn't last long before the two on the other end fell silent. The next thing they heard was a woman's crazed laughter. That laughter echoed and resounded in the empty underground city, then carried over via the silver butterfly. Some white noise crackled over the transmission, and the result was even scarier than hearing it in person. Naturally, this was the laugh of the overjoyed and painfully hateful Xuanji, who had finally seen Pei Ming once more. Didn't the silver butterfly lead her in the opposite direction? "She's smarter than expected," Hua Cheng replied. Xuanji had been hot on the trail of the wraith butterfly, running with incredible speed all the way to the end of the main street in no time. However, she found no one there. She had once been a general on the battlefield, so she quickly realized that she had been led astray. She should have returned to Qirong the moment she figured it out, but she was dead set on finding Pei Ming. So she just turned around and ran in the opposite direction, throwing her boss completely out of her mind. Shilian found it funny for some reason. It was a complicated sentiment. He quickly gathered the escaped hostages, and their group rushed to the Wuyang Holy Temple at the center of the city. Hold on, I'll turn you down a little more. Xuanji had waited for Pei Ming for much, much too long. From the sound of her laughter alone, it was easy to imagine how crazed and twisted her face must look. Pei Ming was probably also stunned by the sight of her, and he was in shock for a long moment before he spoke. "You are..." Xuanji sneered coldly. After a pause, however, Pei Ming unexpectedly asked, "Who are you?" Xuanji was so filled with hate that her voice turned sharp and trembling. Are you trying to anger me on purpose? You're actually asking who I am?" Shilian wiped away a drop of cold sweat. "No way, General Pei. Is he doing this on purpose, or does he really not recognize her?" "Probably the latter," Hua Cheng said. After all, if the rumors were true, Pei Ming had carried on affairs with over 1,000 beauties over the course of many centuries. How could he remember each one? Especially an old one from so many hundreds of years ago. Furthermore, the ghost bride incident on Mount Yujun had been handed off to Pei Shu to manage. Pei Ming didn't bother appearing in person at all, nor did he cast a single glance her way. "Right. You're deliberately trying to anger me. I won't fall for it," Xuanji mumbled to herself. "You want to lie and say you don't remember me. You want to lie to me." And then she screeched again. "Who is this little whore? Aren't your standards usually high? What, trying a different flavor this time?" Banyue was confused. Pei Ming was even more confused. Both made noises of confusion, but that resentful tone seemed to jog Pei Ming's memory. He slightly knitted his brows. "Xuanji? What happened to you?" Only then did Shilian remember that Xuanji must look quite disheveled. Her eyes were the red of a malicious ghost's, and the bottom hem of her bright crimson bridal robe was disgustingly filthy. She crawled like a crocodile on the ground, sluggish but dangerous. Presented with such a sight, it would generally be quite difficult to link her to the noble, composed general she once was. Pei Ming's question infuriated Xuanji. "What happened to me? You dare ask how I've come to look like this? It's your fault. I did all of this for you." Hua Cheng was listening intently, so any subtle movements would not escape his ears. She charged at the protection circle, he informed. Royer can hold her off, Julien said. Sure enough, a shriek was heard through the silver butterfly. Xuanji must have been bounced back and sent flying over 30 meters, dropping into the darkness once more. Pei Ming spoke. His Highness has an excellent spiritual device. I'll have to make one for myself sometime. You wouldn't say that if you knew how it was forged, Julien thought. But before he could complete his thought, Pei Ming shouted, What are you doing? Stop! Don't think you can keep hiding in there, Xuanji yelled. Rumble, rumble. Julien was dumbfounded as he hurried along. What's that sound? Did something collapse? What did she do? It appears she toppled the holy temple. The stone ceiling collapsed. Just as it turned out, when Xuanji found out she couldn't enter Royer's protection circle, she knocked the entire building down in a fit. Are General Pei and the others all right? Little Pei and Banyue are both there too, Julien asked. He was especially concerned for Pei Shu, who was currently mortal. Hopefully he didn't get crushed. They're fine. Pei Ming protected them, Hua Cheng said. The moment the stone ceiling collapsed, Pei Ming became a meat shield and protected Pei Shu and Banyue with his body. Julien breathed a sigh of relief. Then it's fine. The protection circle won't break from that. On the other end, Pei Ming was clearly furious. He smashed the stone slab on top of him with a punch and exclaimed, Enough with the tantrum! Even if you topple the sky, you won't be able to get in. Xuanji only cackled wickedly in response. General Pei, watch out! Banyue exclaimed. What? All their reactions happened at once. Amidst the chaos, Julien heard the sound of a sharp sword piercing flesh. There was no question that Pei Ming was the one who was stabbed. What happened? Julien cried anxiously. Who stabbed General Pei? Did the protection circle break? That's impossible. Wait, a sword? In that instant, he finally understood what Xuanji had been planning. So that was it. After Xuanji had her fill of laughing, she said coolly, Who said I wanted to get in? Another voice also started laughing. Hey, Bei! Look who's here! It's your old sweetheart! Wrong Guang. As it turned out, Xuanji didn't topple the holy temple in a mad fit of rage, nor was she trying to enter the protection circle. Her goal was to crush the two ghost-sealing clay pots Banyue had with her in the circle. This would release the ghosts and allow them to attack from the inside. As soon as Wrong Guang escaped the pot, he quickly turned into his sword form and stabbed Pei Ming. Pei Ming seemed to be trying to pull him out, but Wrong Guang wouldn't budge and kept himself firmly buried in Pei Ming's body.
Right.
You wish! Time to die! Pei Ming gritted his teeth. State Preceptor, Banyue, is the other pot okay? Xuanji and Wrong Guang were already attacking them from both sides. If Chemo joined in the mix, it'd be over for them. Yes, Chemo is still sealed, Banyue confirmed. The situation was growing dire, and Julien was worried. Just as he was about to quicken his pace, Hua Cheng stopped him completely. Perplexed, Julien looked back. San Lang? On the back of Hua Cheng's hand perched another wraith butterfly, which seemed to be whispering to him about a new change in the situation. When the report was done, he looked up and smiled. Guga, no need to panic. Looks like it'll be fine even if we don't rush over. Back at the temple, Ming Guang had pierced Pei Ming's chest under Wrong Guang's command. Xuanji gripped his boots before shimmying up his leg, looking like a red gecko. With the way she was dressed and the ghost fire looming over her head, she was the very picture of a crazed ghost woman. You! Pei Ming cried. Pei, darling! Pei, darling! Xuanji murmured. She wrapped herself around Pei Ming, contorting her body and mangled legs into horrible shapes. In that position, it was difficult to tell whether she wanted to strangle him to death or embrace him tightly. At the edge of her vision, she suddenly spotted Pei Shu, who Pei Ming was shielding. She remembered that this cold and stoic martial god had sealed her under a mountain, and she gritted her teeth. You little mutt! Just as her claws were about to swipe, a hand seized her wrist. The skin of the hand that had halted hers was just as pale as her own. When she looked up, she realized it was Banyue who had stopped her. Her heart burned whenever she saw another woman by Pei Ming's side, and she cried, I haven't even come for your wretched life, but here you are, giving yourself up to me. And then she grabbed for Banyue's head. But Banyue wasn't one of those good, obedient little brides who would stand around waiting to be scratched to death. She deftly seized Xuanji's other wrist. Xuanji was a general in life. She knew that her strength would put most men to shame, and typical human women and female ghosts could only submit to her beatings. But she never could have imagined that this little girl, who looked so thin and weak, like a simple breeze could knock her over, possessed such terrifying power in her arms, a strength that nearly dwarfed Xuanji's own. Not only were both her wrists cuffed and immobile, but Xuanji was even more stunned when their eyes met. This little girl's gaze was full of aggression and murderous intent, like the shimmer of a blade in combat. It reminded Xuanji of the battlefield. Her heart lurched, and she flung away her arms to break free of the hold. Banyue picked up Pei Shu, borrowing the force of Xuanji's throw, hopped meters away, landing lightly on her feet. "Let go of General Pei!" The sword buried in Pei Ming taunted him. "Pei Ming, you're lucky with women as usual. Look at this. You've got two lady ghosts fighting over you." Xuanji clung to Pei Ming like a contorted scarlet python, and both her hands wrapped around his neck. "Your little lover seems to have some skill," she said coldly. Pei Ming coughed out a mouthful of blood. "She's not my lover. I don't have one." "You're still trying to deny it?" Xuanji cried. "If she's not your lover, why would she tell me to let you go?" "If my old ma was here, she'd tell you to let me go too. By your definition, would that make her my lover?" Pei Ming countered. Only his frivolous character could be blamed at this point, since he went around calling women silly thing for no good reason. Xuanji was mad with jealousy and refused to believe a word he said. "What? Afraid to admit it? You were so intimate with speaking with her before. Didn't you always admit it so frankly whenever you got your hands on a new flame? You'd always be honest with me, never caring for my feelings. Do you know how miserable I was? Why are you scared of admitting anything now? General Pei, have you started to fear death? Or do you love her so much that you can't bear to let me touch a single one of her fingers?" They were still a good distance from the Holy Temple, and Shilian watched this scene play out from afar. He couldn't bear to stand by anymore, and looked back. "Sunlong, why don't we go rescue them?" Hua Cheng laughed. "No need to worry, Gaga. Someone else will be showing up soon on our behalf. Besides, even if we head over now, Xuanji wouldn't release her chokehold on Pei Ming." That was true, and things would indeed be rather difficult with the hostages to look after. Yin Yu and the farmers were nervously spectating the action and providing commentary. "Yeah, I can tell that Lady Ghost's love has warped into hatred. She's going nuts." "I don't think so. I'm sure she won't be able to bring herself to go through with it. Want some melon seeds?" "Give me another handful, thanks." "How can everyone be in the mood to snack on melon seeds?" Shilian asked, frowning. "Your Highness, didn't you eat a bunch too?" the people said. "Huh?" Only then did Shilian realize that while he was focused on the show, he had unconsciously accepted a handful of melon seeds that had been passed to him and eaten them all. He slapped his forehead. How rude of me." On the other end, Pei Ming was at the end of his rope. "Xuanji, do you have to be like this about everything? It's been so many years. Why can't we just bury the hatchet and walk away? Why must you be like this?" Xuanji's hand squeezed his throat harder, her almond-shaped eyes bulging. "No! You messed with me first, and you want to bury the hatchet and walk away? You wish." Pei Ming sighed. "You really haven't changed at all. This is exactly why we didn't work out." Xuanji thrust her face close to his. "What was that? You think I'm the problem? What do you mean?" she cried in rage. "Am I not beautiful enough? You told me I was gorgeous. Did I deny you Yushi's battle plans and army secrets? No, but you refused them. You said that you didn't like that I was strong-minded, so I threw away my own legs. Who could ever love you more than me? But what about you? Over hundreds of years you never even cast a single glance my way. How did you ever come to see me?" Pei Ming pushed away the face that was pressed close to his. "I didn't visit because I knew you'd go crazy if I came to see you," he shouted. Xuanji seized the Mingguang sword in his chest and pushed it in deeper, then pulled it out. Pei Ming puked another few mouthfuls of blood. "Say it!" Xuanji yelled. "Swear on your status as a heavenly official. Swear that from now on I am the only one. Swear that you'll never look at another woman again. That your eyes will rot if you do." Mingguang was clearly enjoying this. Go on and say it, Pei Ming. Say it, and you can salvage your pathetic life. Pei Ming cursed. Shut up! God damn it. I never could have guessed. I didn't die on the battlefield. I didn't die by the world's greatest sword. Instead, I'll die by the hands of a nutty ghost woman. Not receiving the answer she desired, Xuanji was absolutely furious, and her claws shot out to grip the crown of his head. Shilian really couldn't wait any longer. Sunlong, I think things are getting out of hand, he said as he put his hand on Fengshen's hilt. Will the person you spoke to make it in time? Person you spoke of make it in time? If not, then let me go first. It's fine, Hua Cheng said. Gaga, look, here they come. Just as the words left his lips, the insane, furious Xuanji froze completely. It was like someone had cast a petrification spell on her. Her body and expression went rigid. Her body... Wait, I just read that. Pei Ming had already been stabbed by her multiple times, and his vomited blood covered the floor. From within the darkness they could hear the crisp sound of ox hooves. Click-clack, click-clack. Their pace was unhurried. Soon after, a person riding a black ox appeared before them. The rider was a woman wearing robes of lush green. Her eyes were clear, her expression was calm and quiet, and as she languidly approached, she held her chin high, like she was gazing at something far away. There's a picture. We finally get to see Rainmaster.
Dude. Bro, what the fuck?
What?
It's telling me to mix this stuff, but it's not telling me the amount of which.
What the fuck?
Oh my god, you fucking load. I'm gonna kill myself. What? Very epic.
Is this your box that you get or whatever? Or is this just a recipe? Is this your box that you get, or is this just a recipe?
No, this is just a recipe.
Oh.
Ow. Bruh.
What?
Where is this fucking... Okay, I found it.
My god. Are you good? Can I continue?
Yes.
Pei Ming, with blood smeared around his lips, was momentarily stunned. Queen Yushi? The woman inclined her head to look at him, her demeanor unchanged. She then gave a slight smile and bowed her head to return the greeting. Shilian was shocked as well. Queen Yushi? That's right, Hua Cheng replied. Heaven's current Rainmaster, the 16th princess of the Kingdom of Yushi, Yushi Huang. She was also the last ruler of the Kingdom of Yushi. Hold on, Venus wants to be let in. Should I read the next chapter or no?
It's up to you. I still have a bit to go.
Okay, I'm gonna read. So I want to speed run this shit. We're on chapter freaking 90, bro.
Dude,
Soon we'll be trauma bonded.
great.
Alright. Chapter 90. The last princess, throat slit before the palace gates. I've never had the honor to meet the Rainmaster in person, so I didn't know she was once a princess, Shilian said. On the other side, Xuanji gritted her teeth. What did you do? Why can't I move? The Rainmaster moved her gaze away from Pei Ming and explained. I have brought the Yulong sword. The Yulong sword? Shilian wondered. The sacred guardian sword of the kingdom of Yuxi, wielded by its ruler throughout history, Hua Cheng replied. The Rainmaster forged it into a spiritual device. It possesses a natural power of deterrence against the people of Yuxi, and Xuanji was a traitor to her people. The fear and guilt still consume her heart. Of course she can do naught but kneel and obey. The Rainmaster told her not to move, therefore she couldn't move. If you can't move, I'll do it myself, Rong Guang exclaimed. He prepared to stab Pei Ming again, but before his blade could sink even a centimeter deeper, there was an explosion of red smoke. Clunk! The sword piercing Pei Ming's chest disappeared, and a tiny blade no longer than a finger fell to the ground. What's going on? Why can't I move either? Rong Guang yelled furiously. Shilian and the others finally stopped spectating from afar and walked over. Hua Cheng glanced at the tiny toy-like Mingguang sword on the ground and smirked. Much better. Let's go, Xuanji, your Rainmaster bid her temperately. Xuanji's hands began to droop from Pei Ming's neck, but she refused to yield so easily. I won't! I finally caught him. I won't let him go. If you must cling to something in order to yield, why not pick up that which you have tossed away and hold it in your hands anew, the Rainmaster said. Alas, the power of the sacred guardian sword was strong, and Xuanji was forcibly torn away. She fell backwards to the ground, looking unkempt and miserable, her hair disheveled. What right do you have to lecture me? Do you really take yourself for the ruler of the kingdom, or have you forgotten how you became queen? I won't acknowledge you. I won't. The Rainmaster closed her eyes and softly shook her head. Banyue seized the opportunity to hurl a pot at Xuanji, which sucked her in. Then she swiftly sealed the ghost bride inside. She fucking pokeballed her, bro. And so, the source of all this mess was finally subdued. Shilian went to Pei Ming's side and helped him up. General Pei's all right? This won't kill me, Pei Ming said. Then he asked doubtfully, I say, Your Highness, have you been here for a while already? What do you mean? Shilian replied. Pei Ming picked up the tiny, shrunken Mingguang sword in his hand. Crimson Rainsought flower. How tough is this seal? It won't break under pressure, will it? Of course not, Hua Cheng replied. To release it, you must hold the hilt, apply spiritual power, and mentally give permission. This seal can't be broken by accident or deception. Only then did Pei Ming heave a long sigh. As for the farmers who had escaped Qi Rong's clutches, they all rushed forward like their parents had appeared before them. Lord Rainmaster! The rest of the group turned around, and Shilian inclined his head in respect. Queen Yuxi. The Rainmaster had dismounted the black ox, rope in hand, and she also bowed her head to return the courtesy. Your Royal Highness. As they greeted each other, Shilian inadvertently glimpsed her neck, and was slightly taken aback. But he quickly replied, During Shenla's drought, my lord loaned me the Rainmaster hat and aided me in my time of need. I was never able to thank you in person, but my wish has come true today. Then he bent forward and bowed deeply. The Rainmaster stood still, and waited until he had completed his respect before she replied, speaking very slowly. I imagine that your Royal Highness might never have relaxed had I refused your one bow. Now that it is done, let us forget the whole affair. The tone of her voice was clear and serene, slow and mild. She wore a soft smile, looking particularly tranquil. Suddenly, a voice called out, Wait, who is this talking? I don't even know who this is. Oh, it's Mingguang. Hey, Pei Ming, isn't this embarrassing? Needing a woman to save you, and it's Yushi Huang, no less. The Rainmaster's demeanor remained unchanged, still very calm, but Pei Ming didn't look so comfortable anymore. The black ox began snorting harsh breaths in Pei Ming's direction, shaking his head and swinging his tail. Although the aggression wasn't aimed at Hua Cheng, Shilian knew that bulls got angry when they saw red, and he recalled many painful experiences of being chased and struck. He quickly shifted in front of Hua Cheng, afraid the ox would be further provoked by the red of Hua Cheng's robes. At the same time, he slapped a talisman on the little sword to seal its mouth. Pei Ming had to say something at this point. He scratched his nose and said politely, "My thanks to Queen Yushi for rescuing and helping little Pei." The Rainmaster was also courteous, and she cupped her hands. "It was nothing." Banyue came over and tugged on the Rainmaster's sleeve. "Lord Rainmaster, Pei Shuguga passed out from hunger." Hua Cheng glanced over. "Let's get to the surface first." The question of provisions was solved very what?
Just laughing because fucking Peishu's been hungry and
He's hungry and like dying
forever. Yeah.
The question of provisions was solved very efficiently by the residents of Yushi country. Since the Rainmaster controlled agriculture, her people always carried food with them. By the time they got back above ground, night had passed and the sun had come out. The Rainmaster retrieved seeds from a satchel on the ox, found a field, and planted them. Then and there. Before long, a small field of crops had sprouted and were ready for harvest. Those who had been starving all cheered. Shilian realized that Gaza probably hadn't eaten well in the past few days either, and woke him up. The moment he was awake, Gaza asked where his dad was, then concluded that he'd deserted him again. He cried up a storm, so Yin Yu had no choice but to give him that extremely ugly green Budawang to hold. When Gaza heard this was his dad, it was like he had been given a treasure. He stopped crying and hugged it tightly as he ate a yam. Meanwhile, Shilian, Hua Cheng, the Rainmaster, and Pei Ming sat to one side to discuss serious business. They could already see Mount Tonglu up ahead. Now that they were closer, they could tell that the lower half of the mountain was covered with large patches of crimson red, like splattered blood. The upper half was covered with harsh layers of snow. "Not just General Pei Jr., but Banyue, Gaza, and the rest must all stay here," Shilian said. "They can't continue onward." Pei Ming was pouring medicinal smoke from a small bottle over his wounds, and shook his head as he sighed. "I've been unlucky this entire way. Hurdle after hurdle." He'd had hellish bad luck. That really did describe his journey thus far, and he was feeling quite miserable. The Rainmaster sat with poise next to Shilian, and after some contemplation she said, "Your Highness, your mission is to subdue all evil creatures who possess the potential to become a supreme. There is one that you may need to watch out for." Shilian perked up. "Did Lord Rainmaster run into something on the road?" The Rainmaster nodded lightly. "Yes. On the way here, I met a young man dressed in white." Shilian let out a soft noise of acknowledgement. "We also heard rumors about the one my lord speaks of while on the road. Many nefarious creatures were afraid of him. We almost ran into him as well. Has my lord seen him in person? How did you manage to get away?" "Much ashamed," the Rainmaster said. "But if it wasn't for the guardian steed's astounding powerful legs and that young man's lack of interest, it is difficult to say how the meeting would have ended." "What did he look like?" Shilian pressed. "His appearance was not clear," the Rainmaster said. "His head was wrapped in bandages." "Head wrapped in bandages?" Shilian was dumbfounded. "Was it Lang Ying?" Pei Ming frowned. "Your Highness knows him?" "I'm not sure," Shilian replied, then immediately turned to Hua Cheng. "Sun Lang Ying is definitely in Ghost City, right?" Hua Cheng also looked serious, and only answered after a pause. "He was, but it's hard to say whether he still is. Gaga, why don't you verify further?" Shilian continued with questions. "Lord Rainmaster, you said the white-clad young man's head was wrapped in bandages. Was he just over 10 years of age, or maybe a bit older? Either way, a scrawny boy?" Yet unexpectedly the Rainmaster replied, "No. The young man was about 16 or 17, and his body type was similar to that of your Highness." "Huh?" Now this was not what Shilian had expected to hear. 16 or 17? Lang Ying isn't that old. Was it really him? Based on the current information, he couldn't be certain. Pei Ming tossed the little medicine bottle aside after he was done. Either way, we'll all end up in the kiln in the end. Let's just wait and see. As a martial god, his recovery speed was exceptionally fast. With just one bottle of spiritual medicine, his severe chest wound was already mostly healed. The Rainmaster inclined her head. Why doesn't General Pei have a sword? Pei Ming hadn't expected her to actively ask him anything, and didn't know how to best respond. Pei Shu, who was finally conscious, answered on his behalf while eating a roasted yam. General Pei's sword was snapped. Eat your yam, Pei Ming said. Pei Shu shut his mouth. When the Rainmaster heard this, she thought for a moment before removing her own sword and handing it to Pei Ming with both hands. There was nothing off about her expression, and she acted like with the utmost grace. It was indeed Pei Ming whose face changed slightly, with an expression like she was giving him a poisonous snake. After some hesitation, he said, Thanks, but this is Yushi's sacred guardian sword. It's probably inappropriate for me to wield it. It has been centuries since the kingdom of Yushi was destroyed. General Pei is a martial god, a skilled swordsman, the Rainmaster said gently. Since we are here to prevent the birth of a new ghost king, this sword will be more effective if you are the one to wield it, rather than I. Pei Ming hesitated even longer, but in the end he still very politely declined. Pay thanks Queen Yushi for her kindness, but there's no need. The Rainmaster didn't push further. They all chatted for a bit longer, and the Rainmaster asked whether they had any news of the Wind Master. Only then did Shilian learn that the Rain and Wind Masters were on good terms. Shi Qingxuan had often visited Yushi country to eat, drink, and be merry, but he hadn't been there in a long time, due to the Blackwater incident, of course. The Lord Rainmaster had sent out her own search party, but they had come back empty-handed. She couldn't help but sigh. The group decided that they would rest for another 2 hours before continuing on their way. Shilian walked off, looking for a random tree to lean against and doze for a bit. However, Hua Cheng managed to produce some rope and cloth out of nowhere, and he set up 2 swinging hammock beds between 2 trees. Both of them climbed in and had a good time swinging, and the beds themselves were quite comfortable to recline in. After lying there for a bit, his arms pillowing the back of his head, Shilian wondered aloud in confusion. Sunlong, why do you think General Pei won't take Lord Rainmaster's sword? A martial god who had lost his weapon would surely be anxious to find another one. Was Pei Ming eager for a beating? Hua Cheng also had his arms pillowing his head. Someone like Pei Ming, while he loves women, he might not think highly of them, he replied leisurely. Not only did he have to be rescued to begin with, it was by a woman, and one he knew in the past, no less. He must be quite frustrated and see the whole situation as embarrassing. Besides, the Rainmaster once disciplined one of his descendants. He probably thinks she was trying to make fun of him. With all that rattling around in his head, how could he possibly take the sword? Their hammock beds squeaked as they swung. Shilian sighed. What nonsensical pride. By the way, Sunlong, did you notice? There's an old scar on Lord Rainmaster's neck. You didn't need to see it. I don't need to see it to know, Hua Cheng said. She's the princess who slit her throat after all. Shilian pulled himself up a bit. I knew it. Did Gaga notice that the Rainmaster speaks a little slowly? That's also caused by the old scar on her neck. Oh, I thought that was just her personality, Shilian said. As a princess, why did she have to slit her own throat? Xuanji's comment also made me curious. Or have you forgotten how you became queen? How did she become queen? It's a long story, so I'll keep it short, Hua Cheng replied. While Yushi Huang certainly was of royal descent in the kingdom of Yushi, she lacked high status. She was a daughter born from a palace servant, so her rank was low, and her awkward, introverted personality did little to help. Even each and every one of the 15 older siblings above, as well as the younger siblings below, were favored more highly than she. The temple of Yulong was the kingdom of Yushi's royal cultivation hall. According to the historical custom, in order to express their sincerity to the heavens, every ruler would select one descendant and send them there to cultivate and pray for prosperity and peace. It sounded like a grand assignment, but in truth it was grueling work. The method of cultivation the temple of Yulong practiced involved hard physical labor. No servants or any items of comfort were permitted, and those of royal descent were not exempt from harsh training. The position was traditionally pushed around. If one was lucky enough to land it, they would often spend an impressive fortune to find a substitute. But when this generation came around, there was no selecting process needed. Yushi Huang was sent off from the get-go. Julian shook his head at this point in the story. Although they both came from royalty and both entered their royal cultivation halls, the Rainmaster's experience greatly differed from his own. No wonder Xuanji didn't sound like she thought highly of the Rainmaster, Julian remarked. Of course, Huazhang said. Xuanji might not be a princess, but she came from an impressive background nonetheless and had many suitors. She was valued far higher in the eyes of royalty and nobility. Now that Xuanji had ruined herself, it was no wonder she couldn't stand the sight of the Rainmaster, who still planted fields so tranquilly. The Rainmaster had urged her to let go, but from Xuanji's perspective, her words were probably seen as condescending and sarcastic. In any case, the Rainmaster spent her days at the Temple of Yulong cultivating an ascetic peace. Until one day, a few distinguished guests came from the kingdom of Zhu. Zhu and Yushi didn't immediately fall out. There was some forced civility and false courtesy at first. In order to maintain the bogus peace, the kingdom of Zhu sent a few royals, generals, and civil officials to attend the national banquet of the kingdom of Yushi, and they paid a visit to Yushi's royal cultivation hall while they were at it. That day, Yushi Huang was cleaning the tiles on the roof of the temple. When she was ready to come down, she found that someone had taken the ladder away. The people on the ground all found it funny to see someone stuck on the roof, unable to get down. Even the princesses and princes of Yushi were snickering behind their hands. It was a general of Zhu who, after chuckling, leapt onto the roof and helped her down. That general was, of course, Pei Ming. Julian was just thinking that General Pei was quite the Casanova when a new voice suddenly spoke up. That guy Pei. He's like that everywhere he goes. Like a dog that always needs to piss and mark its territory. Julian was instantly pulled back to the present by that malicious, vulgar comparison. He looked back and picked up the unbelievably shrunken sword. General Wrong, when did you break free of the mouth-sealing talisman? Looks like you really want to talk, huh? Don't seal me. Let me speak, Rongguang said. I know every sordid affair Pei Ming has ever had like the back of my hand. 3 days and 3 nights wouldn't be enough to list them all. He knew Zhu was going to invade Yushi soon, but he still went and seduced all the favored high-ranking princesses. They were all crazy for him and got in jealous fights. Don't you think that's a little immoral? It certainly wasn't nice. Smile and laugh with me one day, then invade and trample my home the next. Julian felt a little sorry. So did Queen Yushi and General Pei have a good relationship back then? There never was any relationship, Rongguang said. That guy only met Yushi Huang twice. There were too many beauties in Yushi. He forgot her by the next day. In this world, friendships between women fell out fast, but ones between men fell out even faster. The only difference was the end result. When women had a falling out, it might be over after some slaps or scratching, but when men fell out, the end might very well be death, without an intact corpse. When Zhu no longer wished to maintain a false peace, they simply made up some excuse to invade. Pei Ming led their army and charged all the way to the palace gates, forcing the king of Yushi to hide deep within the palace and cling to it as his very last line of defense. However, Pei Ming only needed to apply a bit of pressure to crack the palace's delicate layer of protection like a snail's shell. But he didn't crush them so simply. There were other considerations. At Rongguang's suggestion, he did something else. The Zhu troops took hundreds of felons from Yushi's death row, dressed them up as normal civilians, and dragged them before the palace gates. Pei Ming charged King Yushi with the crime of oppressing his people, and stated that he must come outside, kowtow 3 times, and kill himself in atonement. Only then would they free the civilians, and only then would they promise to not harm the remaining members of the royal household. If the king refused, Pei Ming would behead the hostages. He gave the royals 3 days, and with each day that passed, a third of the group would be killed. After 3 days came and went, they would invade the palace to kill all the royals, then kill the rest of the civilians. General Wrong, what a shrewd but beautiful move, Shilian remarked. Rongguang wasn't mad. He even seemed pleased. I'll take that as a compliment. It was a splendid excuse for Zhu Li to invade Yuxi. The king of Yuxi is negligent and oppressive in his rule, and for the sake of justice, Zhu Li shall rescue the suffering citizens of the kingdom. The sheer righteousness, truly a beautiful move. If King Yuxi refused to come out, then he was selfish, muddle-headed, and didn't care for his people. He had always declared that he loved his people like his children. It would provoke resentment from the citizenry if his words and actions didn't match. They would assume that they had been deceived. "Didn't you say you loved your people like your children? Why would you turn around and let us be sacrificed for the sake of the royals?" This would then destroy their loyalty to the Yuxi royals. After killing the last of those civilians, the people of Yuxi would be terrified that Zhu Li's next move would be to slaughter the whole city. Zhu Li would then announce that those who had been executed were felons on death row anyway, doomed to die. They'd only been used to reveal the selfish lies of the Yuxi royals. Seeing such an immense contrast would immediately calm the growing fears in the hearts of the Yuxi people, and turn them meek and obedient. That would make Zhu Li's subsequent takeover much easier, as the people would be suitably disheartened. However, if King Yuxi really did come out and kill himself to atone, whatever, it made no difference. It would just save them the hassle of killing him themselves. Besides, Pei Ming and Rong Guang believed that King Yuxi would never go through with it, or rather that no monarch would be willing to end their life in a state of such humiliation. To bow before civilians and enemy troops alike, admit one's mistakes, and then die? Dream on. But unexpectedly, the ruler of Yuxi actually did emerge after only one day, just as Pei Ming was about to order the execution of the first group of civilians. The palace gates opened. With the sacred guardian sword Yu Long hanging from the royal waist, the monarch walked out, kneeled before the people, and kowtowed 3 times. The sword was unsheathed, a throat was slashed, and the gates were splashed with blood. Shilian could already guess what had happened. Was it Lord Rainmaster who came out? Yes, Hua Cheng replied. After the palace attendants and royal family had been thoroughly interrogated, the Zhu Li troops discovered what had happened. The Zhu Li troops, which included Pei Ming and Rong Guang, had been loitering around outside the palace that day, laughing boisterously in an excessively arrogant display. On the other hand, the palace was utter chaos inside. Crying and wailing filled the air. It was of course impossible that King Yuxi would go out and kill himself. He sat upon his throne, his face grim and pale. Meanwhile, all the royal siblings, who usually fought each other bloody to curry favor with the king, had been howling and weeping for ages. But the king still hadn't moved a muscle, so each of them began to cautiously attempt to persuade him. There were a variety of reasons, and many types of arguments, such as, "This is for the people. Even if you die, your name will go down in history. If you do nothing, your people are doomed." Every excuse was trotted out, but nothing swayed the king, and soon a day had almost passed. Some of the sons were growing anxious, and they yelled at their father in agitation. The king hadn't even died yet. He was outraged at their behavior and swung his staff out to beat them with it. The sons and grandsons would have never retaliated in the past, but no one cared now that they were in such dire straits. And so, one of the princes could no longer tolerate it and hit back. His punch was unexpectedly too powerful, and it knocked the king, who was in his 60s, to the floor. His head was drenched in blood, and he couldn't get back up. The princes and princesses were petrified at first, but soon they relaxed when they realized he was still breathing. They began to discuss how they could drag the immobile king out of the gate, and then how they could manipulate his limbs into performing the difficult movements of kowtowing and atonement. Even ridiculous ideas were part of the heated discussion, such as stringing him up like a puppet to control him. The king was so furious, he almost had a stroke right then and there. Finally, they decided that they would find 2 people to carry the old king outside to complete the process of atonement. However, now there was a new problem. Who should those 2 people be? It was a dangerous position to be in. Who knew whether General Pei Ming would simply shoot them dead with arrows if he wasn't pleased? Nobody was willing to do it. The dispute and arguments went on and on. The whole time the 16th princess stood there, silent and unnoticed. But she suddenly said something to the old king where he lay on the ground. "Please allow me to succeed the throne," Yuxi Huang said. King Yuxi gazed at this daughter he had barely looked at over the course of her life, and a trifling tear finally rolled from the corner of his eye. Only a single drop. Normally, there would be endless fights over this position, but no one fought this time. Whoever gained the office was doomed to die. Thus, in less than an hour, after the crudest and most rushed succession ceremony in the history of the kingdom of Yushi, the least likely monarch was born. The new queen of Yushi slit her own throat, and blood poured forth like a fountain. She was no doubt beyond saving. Pei Ming had never thought things would go like this. When he glanced over between drinks and saw it play out, he was completely stunned. Rongguang cursed out loud, upset that their luck had turned out this way. How could they do this? The ruler had certainly atoned, but it wasn't the same ruler as the day before. The death of someone so insignificant wouldn't destroy the people's loyalty, and now they couldn't kill the old crook king. Even today, Rongguang still found it unbelievable. We never thought they'd pull a move like that, passing the throne off at the last moment and finding a scapegoat. Absolutely outrageous. The soldiers of Shu Li couldn't bear to watch this absurd succession farce anymore, and they made considerable noise about whether to save this so-called queen. However, her injury was too great. The medical officers confirmed that she couldn't be saved. In the end, Pei Ming had to keep his promise not to touch the civilians outside the palace, nor lay a finger on the royal family. They dressed the injury on the neck of this ruler, then sent her properly to the temple of Yulong to allow her to breathe her last. They would find her a better place in the royal mausoleum where she would be buried. When Yushi Huang took her last breath that night, beneath the divine statue of the former rainmaster, the statue sighed. Thunder roared and lightning crackled. The noon rainmaster had ascended. As the tale drew to a close, Shilian mused, "No wonder General Pei wore that expression when he saw the sword." And that's the end.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. She's a bit like Shilian. She sacrificed herself for her people. What are you making?